We'll talk NFL. We're going to talk a little fantasy football with Danny Kelly. Danny B. Kelly on Twitter, senior staff writer of the Ringer Fantasy Football, plus the Ringer NFL Draft Show. It's all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated. Manny's, Rogers, Lucille. They got everything. Tap room open 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And they got something coming real soon. A real surprise for you. 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. Danny Kelly, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing?
Oh, just, living the dream. We're closer to the weekend. I just want to get to Friday and get to Saturday and just be done with everything. All right, let's jump right into this. Where's Davante Adams going to go?
Oh, excellent question. The Jets, probably, I guess. What do you think?
Really, the Jets. Well, I like how he's like, I want to be traded. Okay, you want to be traded. Where do you want to go? Where my friends are.
The Jets are the Saints, the quarterbacks that I've played with before.
That's like the only two teams. It's like when Griffey wanted to be traded from the Mariners. Where do you want to be traded? Well, the Reds. That's it. Just the Reds.
The hometown.
Do you think it happens? Do you think Adams gets moved to either the Jets or the Saints?
Yeah, I do. At this point, the Raiders are not competitive. They're probably pretty motivated to, try and pick up a pick. I think they put out they want a second rounder. They'll probably get like a third or, something and change. But yeah, there's no real point for them to hang on to him at this point. I think it's just, it feels like a foregone conclusion. The wording on these things always is funny to me. He said he prefers to be traded.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. But yeah, it feels like his relationship with Antonio Pierce has not gone well, and so
why when Antonio Pierce made the comments the other day, or it was last week, where we had guys make some business decisions.
Yeah,
what was it? Is he talking? It feels like now he's talking to Davante Adams. Then
yeah, that was the impression, and then of course Davante Adams made an actual business decision and decided to hurt his hamstring or pretend that his hamstring is hurt. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be funny too if they trade him. He's just immediately healed. This hamstring injury that he's going through that is apparently going to keep him out several weeks.
Yeah,
I don't know. From his point, from Davante Adams' point of view, I can understand why he'd be kind of annoyed at the organization and wanting to, go to a team that's going to contend, have a little bit different, trajectory. So, yeah, I do think it gets done. I think it gets done. There's enough interest in him. He's still playing well enough that it probably will get done.
The team that immediately just came to mind, just because they could use. It's not like they don't have weapons, but they could, in a strange way, could use a weapon like him. Every team could use Davante Adams.
Right.
Kansas City.
I know, right? Yeah. Interdivision rivals. I don't know. I don't see the Raiders doing that, even though they probably should. They're probably delusional enough to believe that they can compete with the Chiefs in the short term. But this is a rebuilding team. This is a team that needs picks and to build for the future. So they probably should trade with the Chiefs, but I don't see them doing that.
Okay,
so I would love to see him play for the Chiefs, though. That'd be fun.
Your bet is who? Your bet is if you weigh the two, the Jets or the Saints, you're going to put money. You're going to make a bet. I don't know if you're a betting man, Danny. You look like you could be. You're putting money on who?
Probably the Jets. I think the Jets have the feel of one last job. You know what I mean? Like it's a bunch of old guys getting together to do one last job. They need to just before they ride off into the sunset, get that job done. Because if you look at like the people they signed this offseason, Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, they traded for Morgan Moses. There's a bunch of, I guess, guys towards the end of the career. They just, this is a team that really needs to compete this year. Joe Douglas, I think, his backup is up against the wall. And when you have a front office and head coach like that, you get a little bit desperate. So I could see them probably pushing the envelope the most and giving up the most for this.
Yeah, the Jets were a lot of people's pick in the beginning of the season. And you look at the Jets, it just looks like a dumpster fire right now. And you know what we're on the cusp of happening, and it's going to happen soon, especially if they lose another game or two, or some type of controversy happens and it's a bad loss. Is where Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, the impression is that they just do not like each other.
Right. Correct.
And then that's just it's somebody they're kind of taking jabs at each other in the press conference, right? Saleh's talking about we're doing too much to this cadence stuff. And Rodgers like, well, maybe they shouldn't jump off sides.
It's hard to believe Rodgers isn't getting along with someone.
It is, but I kind of side with Rodgers on that
I know.
one.
I
Hey,
do
man,
too.
I've been doing this my entire career. It's not my fault these idiots are jumping off sides.
Yeah, no, I actually do agree with you. And like, honestly, I don't know what Saleh has done to prove that he is
Nothing.
like, the guy or like that he deserves Rodgers' respect, honestly. Like, I think the Jets were supposed to be a really good defense this year, and I don't think they've performed probably like they wanted to. So, yeah, I think, Saleh is probably on thin ice. It would not be surprising if he was one of the first coaches to be fired. If things continue to be pretty uneven on that side of the ball. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this thing all goes.
Where do you put the game there against the Seahawks there on Monday night? I mean, I found myself, Danny, taking a step back and going, okay, they lost by, what was it, 13, 42, 29? In a weird way, I kind of felt encouraged by how they played. Is that a weird feeling to have?
No, that's validating because that's exactly how I felt. Okay. Look, they were really, really undermanned on defense, missing like basically their entire starting defensive line. That's really tough. I don't think this is not a roster that's built to withstand that kind of injury situation. It's just not deep enough and talented enough right now. So when you lose some of your key players, it just like throws everything off. And by the way, this is a good offense for the Lions. They're at home. It's Monday night. And they just, ran the heck out of the ball. And so I don't, I didn't feel terrible about the defense. Obviously the defense did not have a good game, and it's not always, it's a bad look to go have the opposing quarterback go 18 for 18. But I really, honestly, just from a vibes point of view, like I was really impressed with how they hung in there. They kept trading haymakers with the Lions the whole game. The offense looked incredible. There was a couple of mistakes, on offense that basically was the difference in the game. If the defense had made a stop or two, that would have helped a lot too. But, I thought, I was encouraged with their fight and kind of the way they stuck with it. They didn't really get down. They kept giving up big plays to the Lions, and then the offense would come right back and throw their haymakers. So, I had the same thought. I was kind of I came away encouraged with everything, even though they lost and even though their defense was atrocious.
How nice is it to have a real offensive coordinator, huh?
Yeah.
How good does that feel? You know what? We deserve it, Danny.
We do deserve it.
We fucking deserve it. The shit we've had to go through forever.
Oh, man.
Isn't it nice that it's like a nice warm blanket?
It's just fun to watch.
Oh, it's just beautiful. Thank God. Thank you, Washington. Thank you for giving him to us.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No, it was so good to see Kenneth Walker back out there. Yeah. I thought that Geno Smith was just, on fire. DK Metcalf obviously had that one fumble. That was a bummer. But just a ton of things to be encouraged about. And when, they probably should have had more points. That moving screen call on Lockett was total BS. That was an incredibly bad call. And I don't know why they didn't give him that 2-point conversion. There was a bunch of plays in there where I was just like, man, this is like turning the game a little bit here with
pass interference calls in the end zone.
Yep. So I don't know. I was really encouraged. The Seahawks are the right now, and this is probably game script a little bit dependent on terms of like how the games have unfolded. But even in neutral pass situations, the Seahawks have like one of the highest pass rates in the NFL. If not the highest neutral situation pass rate. So it's fun to see them trusting Geno and kind of like letting their stars do this instead of trying to like establish the run or whatever, some of the platitudes that we've heard in the past.
Okay, I'm a village idiot. Explain that to me, the neutral pass settings.
Neutral pass.
I'm an idiot, Danny. You got to remember that.
So that's basically looking at the neutral situation. So you're not trailing by more than one. It's like, I think it's within 8 points. So basically, if the game is not in any one team's favor, like dramatically. And so basically this is a situation where the offensive coordinator can kind of call whatever he wants. You're not trying to come back from a deficit, that kind of thing. So that's what neutral situation pass rate means.
We talk about the offense, and I think you and I have discussed this before. I think we were both probably a little bit higher, more intrigued, excited about how the offense was going to be this year than really the defense. Even it's strange to say because Mike McDonald's a defensive, guru. And then you look at what Geno's been able to do in this Ryan Grubb offense. I mean, he I don't know how many stats he leads in the NFL. Passing yards, I think attempts, I think it's completions.
Yep.
And he's doing it when he is constantly under duress.
Yeah.
Danny, just for a second, if Scott Huff can take off that dirty hat of his and figure out, get this offensive line in order, and eventually they will, imagine if the offensive line improves. And they played, I thought they played good against Detroit, actually.
Yeah.
Or better. Imagine if the offensive line improves, they get better at it. Imagine how good that this offense can be if he's just given half a second more time in the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, I think Geno has proven that he can dice you up when he gets the opportunity to do so, and he's really good in the pocket. He has a great feel for extending plays, and I think that's been a big part of their success on offense this year is just his subtle pocket movement, the way he kind of like will step up away from pressure. He sticks in there. He's really just like courageous in the pocket. Obviously, he's had 4 picks. I feel like a few of them were not really his fault. Overall, I've been pretty impressed with his decision making most of the time. No quarterback is going to be perfect in that area. And I mean, he's made some incredible throws under duress. And so I couldn't be more impressed with him. I'm just like waiting for when are they going to like extend him? You know, when are they going to kind of look at this and be like, okay, this is the guy for the long term?
I don't know. It'd be interesting. You know, that was a huge storyline in the offseason when Garofolo, you know, was on this show and said, his agent, his people have reached out to the Seahawks and wanted an extension, at least talk about an extension. And then, of course, the Seahawks, you know, shot it down, and John Schneider did, you know, the car wash to kind of shoot it down. And then Geno Smith at a press conference goes, yeah, we reached out to him. We tried to get an extension done. We're like, well, okay, really?
Yeah.
Maybe they will. You know, it's weird about his great start, and all those numbers are great. It is weird to look at just 4 touchdowns and then 4 picks.
Yeah.
That is odd.
I mean, it doesn't that doesn't line up with the eye test in my opinion.
Not
you know
at
what
all.
I mean? Like he's been really just nails as a passer. And I think a couple of the picks are just like deflected passes, like, you know what I mean? And then I think he had the one in the last game where it was like the last play of the game. He was just trying to push it in there and into triple coverage. It just didn't work out. But yeah, again, I've been really impressed. I know all the tape heads out there are singing Geno's praises right now, so that's always encouraging.
Tape heads? Are you a tape head?
No, not as much as I used to be. I feel like I for a while there, I was definitely a tape head. I'm more of like a fantasy guy now, I guess, if you're going to put me in a bucket.
You know what I want when I see these guys on Twitter with the tape heads? I want someone like Hugh Millen sitting next to me and just to get his thoughts on what he's thinking about watching these guys talk about football.
Yeah. There's, you know, it's an art.
You're wrong there. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not covered 2. What do you think?
I think
I would enjoy that.
That's where I have a very strong sense of humility when it comes to the quarterback position in particular, because there's just a million things that they have to do that you don't really like.
You don't know.
You can't understand unless you're, you know, really know what the scheme is, what they're calling for, like what kind of checks he's going into, and everything he's doing before the snap goes into it. So yeah, I don't even try and pretend I know. Like,
Danny, you and I are cut from the same
stuff.
We're cut from the same cloth. We watch football like we're on a bar stool at a bar.
Yeah,
that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
you give us another beer. Do you have any mixed nuts? Can I play a little pool tabs?
Some pretzels. Yeah,
pretzels are always good. Can the Vikings run their record to 5-0? They got the London game, huh? Vikings Jets. Can the Sam Darnold experience continue? You talk about guys making money. I mean, is Sam Darnold making himself some money?
Absolutely.
He's making a case to be a starting quarterback again next season.
100%. He's going the way of like the Baker Mayfield thing, where he's going to get $100 million. I forget what Baker Mayfield's exact contract is, but it's like it's $100 million, which is not really $100 million.
Sure.
But I think that Darnold is going that way. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens here with the Vikings this season, because they just drafted JJ McCarthy last year. He tore his his ACL? I can't remember. Whatever's going to keep him out the full year.
I think it was an MCL, but a knee injury that's keeping him out for the year.
Yeah, that's right. And so they're going to have, you know, if they end up going like 12-5 or whatever, it's going to be interesting to see like what they end up doing there. I'm sure they'll probably, you know, just go with the rookie, go with the young guy.
Sure.
But, you know, we've seen it happen in the past where teams, you know, the the Packers are a great example of this, where teams will just kind of like, we got a good thing going here. Our young quarterback can wait another year. That was Jordan Love for like 3 or 4 years. So maybe they re-sign Sam Darnold and just create a ton of controversy. We'll see.
Well, I am intrigued by two guys. And I don't know if we talked about this last week or maybe it was with Garofolo. I'm intrigued about Sam Darnold and then Malik Willis.
Yeah, because another great one. Yeah,
where these guys, these rookie quarterbacks, it's always about the system and the team and the coach they go to. And I can't remember who the coach this week said it, and maybe you remember, who said, we give up on these guys way too early. Yeah. There was a coach who was talking about, I think it was Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings coach, because he was talking about Darnold. We give up on these guys way too early, and we don't put them in the right situations. And Sam's is an example of that. And again, I don't know if Sam Darnold is going to be this version of in a different offense, or Malik Willis is going to do what he's going to doing with Green Bay. But if you're a team like, again, I'll bring up Seattle. It's funny that we're going to talk about it just because of how well Geno's playing. But again, if you have at some point the need for a future quarterback who is younger than Geno Smith, I think I look at those two guys and go, could they be a fit here eventually?
Yeah. I liked Willis enough coming out of college. He was rough around the edges as a passer, but I mean, when you have the type of athleticism that he has, there's definitely things you can do in building an offense around him. I mean, look at what, not to compare him to Jade Daniels, but like look at what the Commanders are doing right now with Jade Daniels in terms of like incorporating him into their run game. You could say the same about Anthony Richardson. You could say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. Like there are offenses that you can build around guys with his skill set, where you're not asking him to do too much as he kind of like develops and learns the offense and starts to become a better passer. And I mean, like it probably would never have like continued on this way, but like he was absolutely nails on third down. Malik Willis was when he was in. He was hitting, he was converting third and longs for them, and he never showed any ability to do that kind of thing when he was with the Titans. So I think it is a great example and an illustration of why coaching is so important, why supporting cast is so important, why scheme and play sequencing and play calling and play design is all like, it was just a perfect example of like coaching and situation and how that can change the potential future for a quarterback. I just think like Willis never had a good support system in Tennessee, and I don't know if they really like it was like, I don't know if they wanted him anymore. They got like a coaching change, and so there's just a lot of variables that go into these quarterbacks and their careers, and it's cool to see a lot of these not retreads, but like guys that have been around the league, Geno, Darnold, Baker, like having these guys come back and end up being starters after years of being backups or being thought of as busts, and seeing them be starters and get good contracts. I think that's really cool. And the NFL needs more of those guys.
America loves a comeback story, Danny.
Heck yeah.
They love a comeback story. Have you been surprised at all? Just your thoughts of Jaden Daniels, how well he's played through the first 4 weeks.
I mean, if you said you're not surprised at the fact he's been doing like basically the best first 4 games ever, like, I mean, if you look at like their numbers, they didn't punt in 2 games, which has never happened. Like, there's like Tom Brady's had like 2 games in his career where they didn't punt, and Jaden Daniels had 2 in his first 3 games. So, I mean, yes, obviously a little bit surprised how well he's done. Because I think like coming into the year, you're like, Cliff Kingsbury, what's the deal with this guy? Like, he feels like he's overrated based on everything we saw him do in Arizona. They always started fast and then kind of like trailed off as the year go on. So that's a storyline to kind of watch this year, is like, can they keep this going? Obviously, they're not going to be able to keep the efficiency and just insane, unstoppable, like the unstoppableness that they have right now is not going to be happening all season long. Yeah, clearly. But I've been really impressed. He's been a better passer, honestly, the last couple of games than I was expecting, just based on my expectations for all rookie quarterbacks are pretty low. So he's been great.
I'm willing to admit, well, I'm wrong a lot, so it's really easy for me to admit when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And I think in this industry, more people should admit when they're wrong. And actually, now that I think about it, maybe I'm wrong so much I shouldn't say anything anymore. But I was never. It's weird because coming out of college, I remember watching him as a freshman at Iowa State, and I was watching him because they're playing the Alamo Bowl and they're playing against the Cougs. And I'm like, this quarterback, God, he's pretty damn good. He's really good, and I can't wait to see him in 4 years. Like, what's he going to be like? And he never got much bigger. He had a really good freshman season. Did Brock Purdy, and then he kind of he jumped onto the scene and then kind of went away for a little bit. Didn't have that stellar collegiate career.
Yep.
And then it's an afterthought. He goes to the NFL draft, right? He's the last pick, right?
Yeah. Yep, last pick.
And then I'm looking at him going, God, look at him. He's just scrawny. He's a product of Kyle Shanahan. He's got all these weapons. Now all those weapons are gone. And he's still doing it. And I think myself and the rest of America who doesn't believe in him, you've got to believe in him because he's just good.
It is
really good.
Yeah, it's such I think that's him and Jane Daniels are a perfect examples of like this concept and this idea that you just never know who's gonna like who it's gonna click for in the NFL. Like the NFL is so fickle in a lot of ways. Like if you look at the hit rate for first round picks, it's like less than 50%, depending on how you would like gauge that. And so it is always interesting to me. Like some guys get it, some guys just are good, and some guys can't get it. Some guys can't deal with the speed of the game or the intricacies of the game or whatever. And Brock pretty clearly has it. He's good. I've come full circle, and basically I'm just like, yeah, he's really good. Like especially the last couple of weeks where a lot of their stars have been down, he's been really, really carrying that offense. I think they're last in the NFL in yards after the catch this year, which is total departure from where they normally are. And I think Jane Daniels, like so far, he just looks like he just gets it. Like the game is not too big for him. The speed of the game is not. It's not too fast. And it looks like he's going to be really good in the NFL. So it is just kind of one of those weird things where some guys are just good and you immediately know that you have a future star here. And then some guys, it either takes a really long time or they just like are never going to be good. So the NFL it's a weird thing. And in scouting in general, it's just like, it's just impossible. It's a really, really hard process to do.
Okay, for those who need some fantasy football advice, Danny. I mean, everybody needs some fantasy football advice. Where are we at right now in terms of fantasy football? In terms of guys you could pick up, drop. Is there a hot name out there that maybe in some leagues hasn't been picked up yet? Huh?
Well, right now, just topically, I think if we are assuming that Davante Adams is going to be traded, which I am assuming that right now, I think two guys on the Raiders that are pretty interesting are Jacoby Myers. If he's still out there, he's probably not still out there in your league, but if he is, go pick him up because he's got a very high first read pass rate in terms of like he's the guy that Minshew is looking to first. That's his first read, I think, at the highest rate on the team. And then Trey Tucker has been another guy that's been really impressive over the last 2 weeks. He's a smaller guy, but I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl, and I was really impressed with him. And he's kind of come on. They talked him up a ton this offseason. Antonio Pierce, I think, said in August that he had like the best offseason of any player on the team. So I think Trey Tucker could fall into a role for the Raiders, especially if Davante Adams is traded. So those are two guys I'd stash right now and just kind of see how it goes.
All right. How's your team doing, Danny?
Well, I've got a lot of teams.
How many teams does like Danny Kelly have?
20 something.
Shut up.
Yeah, it varies.
Don't.
I have most of them are dynasty leagues. So I play like 4 or 5 redraft leagues, and so those take more active management. Dynasty, I don't know if you've ever played, but it's like you don't have to do a whole lot. You just kind of set your lineups after the draft. 20? Yeah, it's low maintenance. The dynasty leagues are low maintenance.
Okay.
But yeah, like I'd say like 5 redraft leagues. Got a couple really good teams. A couple of teams have been racked with injury, so they're not very good. A lot of so Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen. Trying to think of a couple other guys. Raheem Mostert. Like a couple of my my guys have been injured this year, so my teams are suffering from that.
Okay. There he is, Danny Kelly, every week. Follow him on Twitter at Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer, Ringer Fantasy Football Show, plus the Ringer NFL Draft Show. It's all brought to you by Georgetown Brewery, locally owned and operated by 2 diehard Huskies, Manny and Roger, pouring the best local craft beer for the past 23 years. Manny's, Bodie, Lucille, Rogers Pilsner. Tap room open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Visit them at georgetownbeer.com. the work you do, the fantasy football live show. What promote yourself, Danny? You never do enough promotion.
Tuesday afternoon, we do a live show on YouTube at 3:45 Pacific. So check us out on that. That also goes up on our podcast feed if you're not into the live stuff.
Okay.
And yeah, we have four shows a week: Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So check us out, Ringer Fantasy Football Show.
Thank you, Danny. We'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Peace.
Danny Kelly from The Ringer, fantasy football, all things NFL with Danny. And also we do Seahawks and fantasy there as well. And in case you missed it, it will be up on YouTube. You can always listen to it later, the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, the one-stop shop would be at pucksports.com.